Hey, I'm Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite games that I am enjoying on Board Game Arena right now. So my favorite games to play on Board Game Arena. I host a weekly in-person game night every other week, and in the in-between weeks, ever since the pandemic, I have hosted a Board Game Arena night every week in between that. So we typically play for 60 to 90 minutes, and we play in real time in person. So we're on Discord, and we're also playing on Board Game Arena at the same time. So I mention all this for context because I know many people play Board Game Arena not in real time. I forget the exact word, but a lot of people play, like turn by turn, not in real time on Board Game Arena. But that's not how I play. I play in real time with other people, face to face. Really, we're playing on camera when we're on Board Game Arena. And so that is my experience of playing on Board Game Arena. That's my preferred way to play. And I play a wide variety of games there. But I also should mention that over the last few years, when I am playing on Board Game Arena, I heavily have gravitated towards shorter games. So even though there are longer games that I can play in a shorter time than I would play on the tabletop, I typically play these shorter games on Board Game Arena. And so that is going to definitely influence the list, my top 10 list this time. I'll probably throw in some other context here, but one thing I wanted to mention at the beginning of the list is that we have put several of our games on Board Game Arena. And by we, I mean that we have given permission to Board Game Arena developers to put some of our games on Board Game Arena, typically at least a few years after they were originally published on the tabletop, because we designed these games originally to be played on the tabletop. And so I want them to be played in that way for at least a few years before we offer them on Board Game Arena. But those games are Viticulture, Tapestry, and Wingspan. And Scythe is on the way. By the time you're watching this video, Scythe may be in beta on Board Game Arena. So let's start off with ambassador picks. Ambassadors picked. So these are Stonemaier ambassadors who mentioned the game that they play the most or that they enjoy the most on Board Game Arena. These are the games that were mentioned multiple times by ambassadors. A Feast for Odin, Ark Nova, Can't Stop, Castles of Burgundy, Forced Shuffle, Great Western Trail, Heat, Obsession, Space Base, Super Mega Lucky Box, Tapestry, Terraforming Mars, The Crew, Ticket to Ride. Yeah. I also have a list. Before I jump into my list of games, I have a list of games also for me that are games that I enjoy playing primarily on the tabletop. I will play them on Board Game Arena, but I primarily enjoy playing these on the tabletop. But they also happen to be on Board Game Arena. And so I wanted to acknowledge these games that I really do love, but if given the choice, I would play them on the tabletop. They are Incan Gold, Terra Mystica, Space Base, Seven Wonders Duel, Downforce, A Feast for Odin, Agricola, Dice Forge, Castles of Burgundy. Actually, I need to move that one. That's going to make the other list, I think. Lost Ruins of Arnak, Wizard, The Crew, Tokaido, Tzolk'in, Challengers, Forced Shuffle, Splendor Duel, Stone Age, Imhotep, Cartographers, Spots, Living Forest, and Super Mega Lucky Box. That last one is right on the edge because I do enjoy Super Mega Lucky Box on Board Game Arena, but I think I enjoy it more in person. And so the rest of this list are games that are on Board Game Arena that I may have also played on the tabletop. But if given the choice, I think I would prefer to play them on Board Game Arena for various reasons, whether it's speed, whether it's setup, whether it's ongoing triggers that Board Game Arena helps remind you about. A variety of reasons. I'll try to mention some of those reasons in the top 10 list. A quick list of the honorable mentions. And you'll notice that most of the longer games that would have been on my top 10 list, really, I'm not playing these longer games at Board Game Arena board game nights these days. And so that is the reason that they didn't make my top 10 list. They are Conspiracy, Clans of Caledonia, Russian Railroads, Castles of Burgundy, Small Islands, Seasons, Samillo, and Regicide. Some of those are shorter games, but many of those Seasons, like Castles of Burgundy, Russian Railroads, Clans of Caledonia, they are longer games that I enjoy playing primarily on Board Game Arena if given the choice, because I think Board Game Arena does a great job of managing all the different triggers and scoring elements in Russian Railroads. You can hover over, like in Castles of Burgundy, it's super helpful to hover over the tiles to see exactly what the tiles do. There are certain elements of these games on Board Game Arena that I think are just a little bit easier to play on Board Game Arena than on the tabletop. But let's get to the top 10. I can finally show you some images on the other screen here. At number 10, I have Pixies. Pixies is a fairly recent discovery for me on Board Game Arena. And I was originally drawn to it by the art, because the art is so beautiful. I think these are all photographs, but they might be digitally enhanced. They might be partially digitally created, but the art in Pixies is really, really beautiful. You are basically creating a 3x3 grid in Pixies, where you are trying to, you're kind of drafting cards into your grid. You're only scoring cards, or cards only really count if they are the second card in one of the positions. Like the first card that you play in a position doesn't really matter all that much for certain scoring elements. But what really matters is when you play a card on top of it, when you get that second card on top. And they are specific positions. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're placing these cards in certain positions based on the number on that card. You're also scoring the little swirly icons above them. Each of these are worth a point. And if you have any X's on the cards, those are worth negative points. So it's this spatial puzzle. There's also a few other rules. I'm not going into all the rules here, but there's a connective puzzle where you're trying to connect cards of the same color, things like that. But it's just a neat little puzzle in a tight space with that's very easy to learn and play and get to the table. And while I am playing this game, I am really, really enjoying the art. I think I would enjoy the art in the tabletop too, but I think the spatial puzzle works really, really well on Board Game Arena. So Pixies is my number 10 pick. At number 9, I have Far Away. Far Away is a game that reminds me a little bit. Someone mentioned this recently on a different video about Let's Go to Japan in the way that cards score. So in Far Away, you are drafting cards from a central draft. You're drafting a card and putting it into your tableau from left to right until you have 8 cards in that tableau. And then you're going to score those cards from right to left. And when you score them, you are scoring what is available to you at that time. So a bunch of the cards will be face down at that point when you're scoring right to left. And so you're only getting to score what you could actually see on those cards at the moment that they're scored. That's the comparison to Let's Go to Japan, where you're scoring the highlight card of your day. So it's a little bit mind-bending. It's the type of game that makes me want to play it twice in a row, to kind of get into the rhythm of playing it once and then play it again to fully embrace it, and maybe not even do better in that game, but to get into that rhythm of what can I possibly score here? How can I stagger these cards? How can I order these cards so that I can score them to the max? There's also a priority puzzle in this game that's actually really interesting. I don't always say this about games that give you like the opportunity to get a card or play a card before other players, but in Far Away, I think this puzzle is really, really is a great puzzle in that like the number of the card that you play determines your order of playing cards in the next round. I think that's a great puzzle, and it just works really well on Board Game Arena. It helps you score the different cards. And it helps, it automates the whole who's going first player order schemata in this game. So Board Game Arena just makes it a little bit easier to play. Although it does look great, I'm sure it would look great on the tabletop as well. This is Far Away at number 9. And number 8 is a game that Board Game Arena is calling Take 5. I know it as Six Nymphs, and I think it is called Six Nymphs on Board Game Arena as well. This is a chaotic game where you're playing cards at the same time and then determining kind of who is busting based on a central supply here. So we're all going to play cards, and those cards will then be played. This 28 is upside down, but they'll be played in a certain position in these rows based on what card they're the closest to. So, for example, if you revealed a 31 and I revealed a 72, the next closest card to a 72 is this 60. And so I would put my 72 right here. And you played a 31, which is very close to 30. It's also close to 28, but it's a little bit closer to 30. And so it would go here. The reason this matters is that each of these rows will bust when they have a certain number of cards in them. When they have, I believe, if you're trying to play the 6th card into a row, that row, it busts, and you will take all the cards in that row, and you'll score points equal to the little icon at the top of the card here. You're trying not to get points in this game. But I think this card works really well on Board Game Arena because it automates all the things that I just explained. Even though it isn't all that difficult to do on the tabletop, it's just a little bit easier for the game to be telling you, okay, the next card goes here, this card goes here, these are the cards that you need to take. It automates all this for you, and it plays very quickly on Board Game Arena as a result. Yeah, so Sixth Mint is my number 8 game on this list for Board Game Arena. Tranquility. This is a tough cooperative game that's a little bit like The Mind with a spatial element that I've only played on Board Game Arena. I haven't played this in person, but I think it would be. I just think it's very easy to get to the table in Board Game Arena. It's very easy to pick different slots. It's very also. This is a game where I think on the tabletop you might accidentally make a rules mistake and play a card where you're not allowed to play that card. These cards kind of act as tiles. You have to play them in a certain order and in specific positions. But on Board Game Arena, it doesn't let you break those rules. And so in Tranquility, you have limited information. It's a cooperative game. Each player has limited information, as in that you can only see the tiles that you have in hand, and you are trying to fill up this grid. It's a 36 card grid, but the numbers I believe go all the way to 100 or to 99, at least close to it. So there are more numbers than can fit in this grid. You are trying to play these numbers in a sequential pattern, and you're generally trying to play numbers that are directly sequential to other numbers. So like this player played a 7 next to a 6. That's great. Because that gap is only one number, and whenever you have a gap that is only one, that means that you only have to discard one card. The bigger that gap is, the more cards you have to discard, and that can be one of the ways that you lose the game when you run out of cards that you can play. So it's just a neat. I love cooperative games that are shared puzzles with limited information. Tranquility is very much that game, and unlike The Mind, I think this does. Like The Mind, I think, is very easy to get to the table. I think this would be a little bit more difficult to get to the table. And like I said, I think it would be possible to mess up a rule in Tranquility on the table, whereas Board Game Arena doesn't let you do that. So that is Tranquility at number 7. At number 6, we have Abandon All Artichokes. This is a game that I'm sure I would enjoy on the tabletop, but I have only played it on Board Game Arena, and it plays very quickly. It plays almost as a filler on Board Game Arena. This is a deck building game where you start the game with artichokes. All of your cards are artichokes. They don't do anything. They are not a good card to have, but the game gives you ample opportunities to fill your deck with better cards. And these cards are all geared towards getting artichokes out of your deck, because you win this game if you draw a hand. So like in most deck building games, you are discarding your hand and then drawing 5 cards for your next turn. If you ever draw those 5 cards and they are all not artichokes, so none of them are artichokes, then you win the game immediately. So the whole game is built around this concept of getting rid of artichokes. There is actually a fair amount of take that in this game, where you can impact other players quite a bit. But for a filler game, particularly a filler game on Board Game Arena, I'm totally fine with that. I usually don't gravitate towards take that style of games. But in this game, it seems to work out quite well anyway, despite that take that. And a lot of the take that isn't quite direct. You might be like potentially hurting someone else, but not necessarily hurting someone else, or you might be affecting everyone at the table. And there's even some positive player interaction too. You might be positively impacting other players as well. But the core concept is just so cool that you start off with a terrible deck, completely terrible, and you're trying to work towards a hand that is no longer terrible at all. I think that is a really cool concept in Abandon All Artichokes at number 6. Draftosaurus is another game that I think would be fun to play, not on Board Game Arena, but I really do enjoy playing this on Board Game Arena, and I primarily do play it there as a filler on Board Game Arena. This is a kind of a draft and write game where you're drafting these meeples, these dinosaur meeples. You're actually passing these meeples around the table. And I guess you're not really writing anything. You're placing the dinosaurs on your player mat in a variety of different like scoring set collection mini games. So you might place like this mini game says that you want dinosaurs that are the same. You want the same type of dinosaur here. You want dinosaurs that are different in this little mini game. And while you're playing, the active player is rolling a die to determine where you are allowed to place. So it might say like place on the right side of the river or the left side of the river, place in a green area or a desert area. And the player who's rolling the die, the current player, the active player, doesn't have that restriction. They can place wherever they want. So it's just this really nice, I say nice. It's a game that flows really well. It's very little downtime. It's simultaneous, and the set collection puzzles are really well done. And there's a lot of variety in the game because you have two sides of the board that you can actually play with, both sides of which are available on Board Game Arena. So I really do enjoy Draftosaurs as the type of filler that you play, and then oftentimes I want to play again. Like I want to play on the back side of the board the second time I play Draftosaurs back to back. So that is Draftosaurs at number 5. We do have a few games that are slightly longer in the top 4 here, and one of them is Veil of Eternity, the Veil of Eternity. Now, this is one of these games that I really enjoy on Board Game Arena. I have played on the tabletop, and I enjoyed that too, but I enjoy it on Board Game Arena because the game reminds me of different ongoing effects. Kind of similar to what I said for Tranquility, so it doesn't let you break rules. And I found when I played the Veil of Eternity on the tabletop that I fairly consistently forgot some of the ongoing triggers, the ongoing effects that I had. Part of the reason might have been that I was teaching the game, and so that was taking me away from remembering some of my abilities. But it is really nice on Board Game Arena that even if you are teaching the game doesn't let you forget the different triggers, the different benefits, ongoing benefits that you have in your tableau. So it is a tableau building game where you're drafting cards and then playing some of those cards into your tableau. Some of them you're discarding as currency. And currency is a big part of the Veil of Eternity in that to play these different cards, you are spending different amounts. So this one costs 7, this one costs 3, this one costs 4. But the currency is limited and you never get change. So like these are the 1s, the 3s, the 6s. You can't get change for this when you spend it. So if I only have a 6 and a 3 and I want to play a 7, I don't get two resources in exchange. I don't get that back. So I'm trying to have exactly the currency that I need. And a lot of the cards do cool things with currency where they say like, whenever you gain a 3 value resource, gain an extra bonus. Or I think this one might actually say that you gain a point when you do that, whenever you spend or whenever you pay or whenever you gain that sort of resource. So a lot of the cards might push you towards a certain type of resource token, which I think is really cool since the resources are both resources and currency in the Veil of Eternity. But yeah, for the reason I mentioned, I think it plays really well on Board Game Arena and that it remembers all the triggers for you and reminds you of them. So that is the Veil of Eternity at number 4. At number 3 is the game that on Board Game Arena can't stop, where if you sign up for Board Game Arena, this is the game that they'll use to introduce you to how the interface works. At least it was when I signed up for Board Game Arena. There are lots of different versions of Can't Stop. This is one version that I found that I think clearly shows how the game works on Board Game Geek. But this is a push your luck game that plays up to 4 players, and it is just it's push your luck distilled down to its core elements, and that you are trying to race to the top of 3 of these different paths. I think you're supposed to be climbing a mountain essentially, and on any given turn, you have 3 active tokens. These black tokens that you are moving up on these paths to represent your progress on those paths. But it's only temporary because if you ever decide to keep going, you roll the 4 dice and you cannot move up on any of those 3 paths that are currently active for you, then you bust and you lose all progress on those paths. So yeah, you're rolling these 4 dice, you're orienting them as you wish. So like this player has a 9 right now and a 3, but they could rearrange these dice in other ways. And they are active on the 3 path. They're not active on the 9 path, but that's okay because they have a viable way to move up. They have a 3 here that they can move up on the 3 path. So they can either move up or they do move up, and they can either then stop and record their progress on those tracks that they were moving up, or they can continue on and hope that they don't bust. But it's just a delightful little, I don't want to say mindless, but it is really, really casual. You don't have to think all that hard about it as you're playing. We often use it as a starter or a finisher on a board game night, a Board Game Arena game night. And that is Can't Stop at number 3. 7 Wonders. So back when I previously did this list, 7 Wonders was on my list of games that I enjoy to play on Board Game Arena and the tabletop. And even recently, I filmed a video where I said that I am happy to play 7 Wonders on the tabletop or on Board Game Arena. That is true. I am happy to play 7 Wonders either way, but it plays so fast on Board Game Arena with absolutely no friction of like reorganizing the decks for different player counts. There's no shuffling. There's no dealing. it is just so fast and streamlined that it takes a 45-minute game and it distills it down to a 10 to 12-minute game on Board Game Arena. With the same experience, like you're still getting the meaty Civ building experience of Seven Wonders, but you're getting it in 10 minutes on Board Game Arena. That is tough to beat. And so I would have to say that I do prefer to play Seven Wonders on Board Game Arena now over the tabletop. But I love everything about it. I love the drafting game. I love how it's drafting. I love the engine building, the sense of progression of the game, and the build up from era 1 to 2 to 3, but without all the card organizing, all the shuffling, the dealing. I am going to say that I prefer Seven Wonders on Board Game Arena as my number 2 pick. At number 1, though, I'm going to go with Century Golem Edition, or Century, any version of Century. Century Spice Road and the Golem version are on Board Game Arena. I really, really love this game. The core mechanism of this game is that it is a Concordia-style hand management game where on most turns, you are playing a card from your hand and gaining the benefits of that card. And these cards say things like convert 2 green crystals to 2 blue crystals, or to convert 2 blue to 2 pink. So they're either conversions or they're just saying like gain a basic crystal. So you're either doing that or you are claiming one of these cards from the card row, these gold cards. I think this is a player's hand right here. This is the actual card row. So if I can pay 5 green gems or green crystals, then I gain 10 points and I gain one of these tokens here. 18 points here if I spend 2 blue or 3 pink. I think the last thing that you can do on your turn is to just take your cards back into hand. So all the cards that you've already played, you can take them back into your hand, so that you can have more options to play cards on your next turn. And meanwhile, you are selecting the other option that you have is to buy a card. So you can buy a card from this card row. For each card from left to right that you don't take, you have to put a crystal on it from your supply. And you also have limited space as to how many crystals that you can hold. Anyway, yeah, here's the limited space right here. You can only hold 10 crystals. So this is just, it's a really, really nice resource management puzzle that feels very satisfying. It flies by on Board Game Arena. It plays very, very quickly in Board Game Arena. And it is just a really satisfying puzzle. I really, really enjoyed the puzzle of this game, of Century Spice Road or Century Golem Edition. The race to try to get the better cards, because this is a public card row, that's really satisfying, paired with this optimization puzzle of which card do I go after, which card do I get, and when do I wait for crystals to pile up on some of these cards that no one's taking before they just become super lucrative, and I decide, okay, I'm just going to take them for the crystals rather than for the card itself, as long as I have room for those crystals. So it's only a few mechanisms in the game, but they're all tied together really, really well. And yeah, I'm always happy to play Century Golem Edition or Century Spice Road on Board Game Arena. I guess, and the reason that I chose this game for Board Game Arena over in person is that there is some fiddly management that you need to do on the tabletop when you play this game. I've played Spice Road. I played that version on the tabletop, and you are frequently like sliding cards over because the cards are in a specific order. Like if I take this card out, I have to slide these cards over, put another card in. If I take this card, I have to slide these cards over, put another card in. So whenever I am managing card rows like that, card rivers, where I have to slide cards over, that is extra management that someone at the table needs to do. They become a manager of that element of the game. And I think it is a little bit easier to play that type of game on Board Game Arena than on the tabletop. So that is why I prefer to play Century Spice Road on Board Game Arena and why I really, really do love the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And please give the context of whether or not you primarily play in real time on Board Game Arena, or if you play not in real time. I'm forgetting the other term for it, but not in real time. If you prefer to play that way, that might give some context for the types of games that you play on your list. But let me know your top, I don't know, top number 1, number 3, number 5, even your top 10 if you want, games that you are really enjoying playing on Board Game Arena right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.